All right, man, peace. Brothers, you better be very careful what type of role you choose for yourself because others around you are going to expect you to maintain that facade, if it's truly a facade, for as long as they know you. If you decide I'm going to embrace this social activist or the woke role, people are going to expect you to be that and to fulfill that for as long as they know you or they need you to play that role. In the case of the NBA, they're known as the most Marxist organization of all of the major sports leagues, meaning what? They're the biggest pot stirrers. They're the ones who like to act as if they're going to get out ahead of many of the liberal movements and champion them, grab the flag, etc. But like all other corporations and businesses, they're only doing it for a buck. But it's for the global buck, not for the national buck. They're trying to destroy the concept that America is based around, which has always been isolationism, at least until the early 1900s. They've been working against the isolationist policies of America since the early 1900s, pretty much since the inception of World War I, and definitely since its end. That brings us to Mr. Adam Silver, who, like his forerunner David Stern, was a member of the Council of Foreign Relations, which is a globalist confederation of major movers and shakers whose job it is to use whatever their endeavors are or their enterprises are to bring all the peoples of the world together. Basically, they're members of the great work. They're all hermeticists. They just don't explain that to the masses of the people. The masses are meant to believe that the unification of all nations and tongues is a good thing, when in all actuality, it's just the renewal per se of the overall agenda of Cush and Nimrod within Genesis, the 11th chapter. But just getting back to the point. The NBA is in a conundrum right now. They were desperate, so basically they had to lead the charge of all of the major sports leagues in America in designing what the overall protocol was going to be to combat the quote-unquote global pandemic. And they did a relatively good job of it because of all the sports, their sport is the easiest when it comes to managing personnel because they have the smallest rosters. Well, that also means that their season had to carry over into the season of the most popular sport within America, that being the NFL. That, of course, cost them a great deal of ratings, as well as the exploits of many of their more quote-unquote popular stars and superstars like LeBron James, who are trying to act as if they're Marxists when in all reality, they're capitalists. Either way, they have turned off a sizable portion of their viewership, and now they're going to have to deal with the fact that they're going to have to possibly restart their season even before next calendar year comes. Because due to the fact that, as already stated, Adam Silver is a member of the Council of Foreign Relations, he has to take the Olympics into account because the Olympics could not be enacted or could not be started this year. The Olympics is probably the most major globalist propaganda ploy and money grab that we have in this society. And Adam Silver and the NBA stands to make wads of cash just from being associated with the Olympics. So that means that their season has to end before the Olympics starts. Therefore, they cannot start their season. The NBA cannot start their subsequent season next calendar year. They have to start it sometime later on this year. So we're going to see what's going to occur because I'm sure that many of the more prominent NBA veterans are going to try to buck up against it. Of course, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
But first, the NBA is eyeing a December 22nd start for a 72 regular game season, and that isn't going over well with some players. Danny Green gave his thoughts on the Ringers NBA show, saying this, quote, "Most guys, if we start in December, are like, I'm not going to be there."
That's what they're saying right now. But I have news for you, Danny Green. A lot of you guys are not going to have that option to say, I'm not going to show up. I promise you that. I know that we're living in the post-George Floyd America where everyone thinks that they're going to tell their bosses what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, especially NBA athletes who for some reason have been trained to believe that they're social leaders. But they're living outside of the realm of reality. And I think that they're going to find out very quickly that the NBA will move on without you, especially if you're a Danny Green who is extremely expendable. I think that Danny Green is talking because he believes that that's the tact that LeBron James is going to take. Maybe he's spoken to LeBron already and LeBron has told him that that's what he's going to do. But I do believe that Adam Silver is going to get on the phone with LeBron and let him know we need to get this done, and you cannot sit out the first month of the season because we have advertisers, we have broadcast companies that are going to be paying us in the billions, And part of that deal is that LeBron James is going to be the front piece of this entire operation. So Danny Green can talk all the shit he wants to talk right now. I think that he's going to be there when the season starts, but we'll see.
Not like we have a bunch of young guys and rookies. Bron has been in the finals 10 years out of his 17 years.
Who gives a shit?
Quick of a restart. I wouldn't expect him to be there.
You probably shouldn't speak for him unless he's already told you that.
I expect to see him for the first month of the season.
Danny Green's talking like he's already spoken to LeBron James. We'll see what happens.
Okay, Stephen A. So when should the NBA season start?
Whenever it's best for the NBA to start business-wise, because they are a business. At the end of the day, it's not about how people feel about it. It's about what they're owed to certain people who have made contractual obligations with them. They must fulfill their own share of the contractual obligation. You can't just sit back and say, you know what, I'm not comfortable right now. Once again, this is why athletes are not built to be societal leaders, because they're living according to their own standards. Most people can't do that. There are many who would love to say, I'm not ready to head back out into the workforce. I'm scared of COVID-19, but they have to go or they'll be replaced.
For me, I would prefer after the new year, because to start right before the holidays, after the year that we have had, certainly you can understand where the players are coming from in terms.
No, sir. The NBA, if they're smart, will start exactly when they say, which is December 22nd. Why is that? Because ratings-wise, they can take advantage of the Christmas season, quote-unquote Christmas season.
I wanted to start December 22nd. That would mean 3 days removed from Christmas. Obviously, some of you have road games. You're going to be away from your family. And even though this is something that's really traditional, because you usually playing, the season usually starts max in late October and what have you, the bottom line is because of the coronavirus pandemic and the sacrifices at least 22 teams were called upon to make for this summer and what have you, to then turn around after the season ended.
The sacrifices? You mean the guys getting 6 and 7 figures to play a 2-month AAU tournament? Are you fucking kidding me?
In October, and to ask them to come and start right before Christmas, that is a tough ask. But let me say the flip side to all of this. First of all, Danny Green, let's understand, you did have 4 months off. Let's put that in its proper perspective. There were
Thank you, sir.
months that you had off. That's number one. Number two, this isn't just about the NBA. This is about the networks. According to the proposal, according to my sources, Max, is going to be a 70, and I'm sure Brian Windhorst and Woj and all of them reported this. It's going to be a 72-game season, not 82 games.
They want that local TV money.
They want that local TV money. It would start December 22nd. And the reason that they're doing it is because we, meaning ESPN, TNT, ABC, we suffered tremendously as a network because of the NFL games. You don't want to go into the NFL season. And the reason why you want to...
Maybe the NBA should stop trolling the NFL and talking about how much more woke they are than the NFL and just play their fucking games. And they wouldn't have to worry so much about getting slaughtered by the NFL ratings-wise.
Before Christmas is because you don't want to interfere with the Olympics either. So the combination of the Olympics, the combination of the NFL season is incentive enough to say, okay, let's start this December 22nd. Now the players, Danny Green, I hope you're listening, you know, you can get what you want. You can start the games in December. I'm sorry, in January. You know what that condition is? Forfeit $600 million. That's what I'm told. If you want to sit up there and start almost a month later, you're costing yourself $600 million. Because with all the other money that's already been lost, with a new collective bargaining agreement certainly to be negotiated, now you're talking about the spec.
I've already stated the NBA owners did not mind the players getting quote-unquote woke because they knew they were basically going to be in a no-lose situation. If the ratings went down, which reportedly they have, and the owners saw that they were even starting to approach figures that seemed to show that they were going to start losing money, they were going to tear up the collective bargaining agreement and force the players to renegotiate, and that would give them the perfect opportunity to take money out of the pockets of players who, for the most part, the vast majority of these owners believe don't deserve it anyway.
Of losing out on an additional $600 million if you want to start after the new year.
You're going to lose games.
That's right.
Why though? Because when you can't you make them back up after? That's if you don't do it.
They're saying no because of what I just told you.
normal woman thinking that money grows on trees. Just shut the fuck up, Molly. Hello? You don't get it that at the end of the day, the time that you play the game is also going to determine how much money you can make. You just can't say, well, we can make up those 10 games sometime next July. No, the ratings are not going to be the same. You're not going to get the same amount of money. You're not going to generate the same amount of money.
Touching the Olympics, and they don't want to touch it to the NFL preseason.
It's not
because
ideal for the networks. And here's the thing:
yes.
the pandemic hasn't been ideal for anyone.
Right.
So there has to be compromises made.
There has to be compromises.
And you know who's made the biggest compromises? The NBA players. And I know that basketball, in a way, is easier to organize than baseball or football in that way, because there aren't so many participants, right? So you can put it in a bubble. And also, they were almost done with their season. So they got to get all the local TV revenue by doing this extra 7 or 8 games, then going in the bubble, crown a champion, the whole thing, 0 positive tests. It's like a great success story. That took compromise everywhere, especially for the players. I understand why NBA players would be like, hold on, we just finished a grueling season where we were separated from our families for months at a time, right?
Oh, wah. These dudes played a 2.5-month AAU tournament where they all got paid 6 to 7 figures. Some of them maybe even got 8 figures. Who the hell knows?
And put in a bubble. The other leagues weren't willing to do that. We did that.
Because the other leagues would have had too many bodies to manage, you idiot. Basketball is the perfect bubble sport, because you have 13 players on the roster and maybe 5 or 6 coaches, 3-4 trainers. It's not that big a deal. Go ahead and try to put NFL football teams into a fucking bubble and find out what happens.
Champion and showed everyone how it was done, the whole thing, and now you want us to turn around 6 weeks later and start the new season? It's tough, but you know what?
No, it's called sacrifice. If they want their league to survive, they're going to have to sacrifice.
Cost of doing business, not like it still beats digging ditches for a living, and it's the cost of doing business. Stephen A. Molly, we work on Thanksgiving on this show. We work on Christmas. We work on New Year's this year. We're going to work on all those days, right?
I don't know about me, but
that's the cost of doing.
I don't know about me.
Well, listen, Danny Green.
I don't know about me. I'm going to take a New Year's Eve off.
That's the cost of doing business, in success, and they're going to have to. The players, I think, it is in their best interest, not only of the league, but also of the players, to do something that's going to be a little extra uncomfortable this year. I get why they wouldn't want to do it, but if, in fact, that network TV money is on the line, I understand the argument for them to do it, and I would, it's up to them, but it would seem to me that everyone's going to have to compromise.
Let me say this. I'm not going to just talk about the sacrifice the players made. Everybody's made a sacrifice. The networks have made sacrifices. The league has made sacrifices. The commissioner, Chris Paul, the president of the Players Association, Michelle Roberts, executive director of the Players Association, the coaches who weren't even allowed, when the players were allowed to bring family members and stuff like that, the coaches were the last to the party to be granted those perks, per se, which is what Coach Malone in Denver complained about. So there's been sacrifices on everybody's part. At the end of the day, Max, you're absolutely right. Fellas, this is about business.
And that's all it's about. All this nonsense, a lot of these guys, they're going to try to bring their wokeism to the collective bargaining table, and they're going to get embarrassed. What the owners did was they laid a trap with just enough bait to ensure that the players were going to bite. And they better make sure that they can make as much money as they can this season, because once that renegotiation starts to take place, they're going to lose money that they might not get back for another 30 or 40 years, assuming that this society lasts that long, and they're able to once again reinvigorate the relationship and the dynamic that they at one time had with the masses at large who used to watch the sport of the NBA. The NBA better be very careful, because right now they're pop culture relevant, but they're starting to lose relevance when it comes to watchability and viability as a top sport in America. They become too polarizing. There's too many of their players who actually think that they're something more than basketball players.
Stop acting like you don't know NBA players. You know good and damn well what's going on here. The league is trying to make sure it doesn't lose even more money. The networks themselves are trying to make sure they don't lose even more money. And you, as a result, which is why you agreed to come back and play after the pandemic, was to ensure that you don't lose even more money. That is what this comes down to.
Would you blame LeBron if he didn't want to play the first month like Danny Green says?
I wouldn't. Well, I wouldn't blame LeBron either, but LeBron...
You can quote-unquote not blame LeBron if you want to, but it sets a terrible precedent for him as someone who wants to be the face of the NBA and for all intents and purposes is the face of the NBA. For him to say, I'm going to sit out the first month of the season and let these little niggas out here, you go out and roll the basketballs out and do what you want to do. I'll come back when I feel like I'm good and ready. I think that it's incumbent upon LeBron to come out whenever the NBA states the season is going to start, and he can coast the first month of the season. Supposedly he's a gym rat. You might as well go out there and play. It's not like you're going to be just chilling for the next 3 months, right? Supposedly, you love to be out there training. So you might as well go out there and play with your teammates. And that will encourage people like Danny Green to also come out and play. You don't have to go 100% balls to the wall the first month of the season. You can chill out.
Let's understand LeBron's a special circumstance because LeBron is constantly that burden is constantly thrusted upon his shoulders. He's in his 17th year. He's been to 10 NBA.
Right, but you know what? If you're going to allow LeBron to sit out the first month, I don't want to hear any more about Kawhi Leonard and load management. Because supposedly he sits out due to having an arthritic degenerative knee issue. It's not just because he's chilling out. So for you to give LeBron James a pass and say, well, he could just chill out for the first month of the season while he's supposed to be the face of the NBA, and allegedly they're having money problems or potential money problems with the networks, and the networks are paying the NBA billions believing that LeBron James is going to be a showcase athlete in their broadcast. I mean, where does that make sense? Who are you helping?
He doesn't miss games usually. I mean, he does a lot.
You're missing one other piece, though, that we haven't mentioned at all. They're at the forefront of the social justice movement. They're at the forefront now.
There's no such thing as the social justice movement. There's the Marxist movement that is being implemented by very, very powerful Caucasian Jews behind the curtain, and they're using pawns to execute their whims in the public. LeBron James is nothing but a pawn. That's why if you question most of these NBA athletes who talk about quote-unquote social justice, they don't really have an end game or a plan because they have not even thought things out to that degree. They're being told what they're going to do.
Voter registration in urban communities, there's a lot.
Yeah, voter registration is the plan because that's what's going to solve all the issues in the so-called black community. That's how you know that they're being puppeted. LeBron is not saying, okay, here's the plan to assist so-called black people in getting more jobs. Here's how we're going to bring the so-called black man back into the household. Here's how we're going to lower the abortion rates within the so-called black community. Here's how we're going to lower incarceration. Here's how we're going to improve education. And I don't want to hear about that fucking school either. That's nothing but a Ponzi scheme. They put LeBron James' name on that school and had him dress up like Malcolm X. How the fuck is he involved in education and he barely graduated high school and didn't go to college? This dude's been nothing but a pawn for the longest time. So I don't want to hear about how the NBA players are leaders in anything other than buffoonery and trickery.
Shoulders, these NBA players, beyond what any other sports league has right now. In addition to just being in a bubble.
Anytime you hear a liberal woman trying to champion what anyone is doing, you know that it definitely is going to take some evaluation and investigation to verify exactly why she's co-signing it so hard.
World.
Can I give you my answer?
If what you're doing is truly righteous, the first person to come against you will be the liberal woman.
Yeah.
So what? So what? Let put the camera on me. Take away those damn highlights. I'ma say it again.
Say it again, Steve.
So what?
Agreed. So the fuck what?
You can walk and chew gum at the same time. Just because you're going to play basketball games, just because you got to travel to do your job in which you get paid for, does not strip you of the ability to...
And the responsibility of doing your damn job.
Be conscious, be socially conscientious, and to engage in whatever activities that you need to do.
No, there's another level. Go ahead.
Let me address that first.
I know there's levels.
There's a lot on NBA players' plates.
Right?
No kidding.
A lot. And I can understand.
You mean the plate that they set for themselves? The plates that they set for themselves. There's really not a lot on their plate because nobody's looking at them to truly lead. Unless you're some dude who doesn't know up from down. No one takes these NBA players seriously as leaders.
they're emotionally and mentally exhausted. When I say that's the cost of doing business, they are in leadership positions. They took those positions actively.
That's the best thing that you've stated thus far.
Get credit for that from many, including we here on this show. A lot of working people have to do all kinds of uncomfortable things. Forget about just people on the front lines during the pandemic. And while they are athletes and we think of them differently and they don't have to, work with a jackhammer or whatever, things are sometimes tougher than other times. And this is one of those times, including for NBA players, I think.
I think the other piece that I was just going to say, too, is if potentially we're going to have the second wave of coronavirus and where they would potentially play this game, this would allow them more time to kind of figure things out and see what's going to happen if we are going to have a spike and protect the players. And I think there's more of an appetite after the new year because we're going to be in the thick of it.
Right, bitch, but let me ask you a question. Do you balance your own checkbook or do you have an accountant balance it for you? Because you're talking like someone who has no idea what contracts mean or or the fact that you actually have to stick to your word and money is on the line.
The NFL heading towards the playoffs.
Here's my response. No one should be telling them to shut up and dribble or shut up and play. I'm not doing that. I'm saying.
Well, you should, because most of these niggas need to shut up and dribble.
At all. These are tough times, and you have to do more than you are accustomed to doing.
And once again, the reason why I say that is not because they're basketball players, but because they have no real solution. They have no real end game. So you're just adding more, you're adding more noise to the cacophony. You're not bringing order because you don't know anything. You don't understand what you're trying to be a part of. You're just trying to use your name recognition and your fame to inject yourself into a situation that you cannot really assist. You cannot assist in rectifying the problems because your knowledge base is so small.
Have to do more. The challenges that you're going to face are not going to be ordinary. A matter of fact, they're going to be extraordinary. One of the things we talked about when LeBron James and the Lakers won the championship, we talked about whether we actually had a discussion, Max, as to whether or not this might be his greatest title ever because the obstacles in which he had to overcome.
No, it's not his greatest title ever. It's nowhere close.
To that championship may have been some of the greatest ever. We understand so many of us, millions upon millions of people, have to face challenges now that they never had to face before. All I'm saying is accept that.
Well,
it's nothing.
I'll say one thing about that. You and I are discussing what we think they should do.
Right.
But I would say, to Molly's point about the NBA players and how they were able to pull this off, the level of cooperation and sacrifice, all those things, including leading on social justice, just because I think they should do it, I do think that they have, of course it's up to them what they do, but from just kind of a moral position, they have earned the right to say, you know what? No, we're not going to do that. Even if we're leaving, we want to wait.
From a moral position, they've earned the right to say that they're not going to play the first month of the season. So what the fuck does their fake morality have to do with their job? Like, I'm not understanding that. That's like someone saying, you know what? I'm not going to come to the office today because morally speaking, I'm stressed out about George Floyd's murder. You know what the boss has the right to say? That's cool. You can chill out for the remainder of your natural life. You're fired.
That's fine, no disagreement. But then you have to acknowledge, as a grown-up, that a business has a right to say, we totally respect your decision, but we're not paying you.
Or the same.
Ding.
You're going to say, we have a right to do
that.
So
is this December deadline, is this really going to happen?
I think it is.
I
think it is. I think it's very, very real that it's going to happen because you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars.
And if the NBA is smart, that's what they'll do. Because basically it's going to be a 72-game season starting in late December. Or if they start in mid to late January, it's probably going to be around a 60-game season. And they're going to lose a whole bunch of money. Because they're not going to try to compete with the Olympics.
If it doesn't happen.
Baseball players did this already. They wanted 82 games. They couldn't figure out a compromise, bubble, whatever. Eventually the league just said, nope, we're going to unilaterally say 60 games and prorate the salaries. And the players lost some money, but that was their choice. And the NBA players, if anyone, has a right to have the fans with them if they make a choice to postpone.
But the problem is the players, and I'm not saying most of the players, all of them. You do have a few that talk as if we shouldn't have to work, but we should still get paid.
Yes, because they've embraced Marxist philosophies, i.e., as the quote-unquote proletariat, they're entitled to funds that they haven't worked for. And that's what's going on in the NBA. They're trying to intermix the Marxist philosophies that they're being taught with capitalism. They think that they're quote-unquote for the people, but meanwhile, they still believe that they're entitled to being millionaires, which would put them levels above the people that they claim they're trying to champion. In true Marxism, they would take all their money and divvy it out amongst the masses of the people that they claim they're trying to empower until they're of the same class. How many of them are willing to do that? I promise you, very few to none.
That's not practical. In any business, we have to understand. I understand, Molly. I'm sitting here doing First Take with you and Max. We #1 in the mornings. Well, guess what? If I don't show up, I don't expect to get paid. I don't expect to say, oh, I'm not going to show up because, you know what, not just the coronavirus, but I got these social justice issues that are on my mind. And to me, that's where my focus lies.
Thank you, sir. That's why I respect Stephen A. Smith. He says a lot of dumb shit. Don't get it twisted. As a matter of fact, he's pretty much the forefather of the people who were trying to call out the athletes to become leaders. But he's also a highly intelligent brother as well. But he does say stupid shit. What I do like about him is that he understands and grasps accountability and the fact that everything that you do is going to have repercussion into something else. You can't just say, hey, I feel this way and I also think that you should feel that way, because that's what the liberals are running with, this concept of empathy. If you empathize with me, you're going to feel how I feel. No, sir, I don't think so. For me to empathize with you, that means I can tolerate you feeling how you feel. I don't have to feel how you feel.
By the way, can I still get my check? It don't work that way.
Thank you, sir.
All I'm saying is everybody has to understand that. That is reality.
Who are these players who want to get paid the same?
I'm just saying, oh, but talk to them. you know a few of them. Talk to them. Hey, what's the matter? They make enough money. I mean, look at all the money we generated for them. How come we can't still get paid?
That's Marxist 101. The owners make enough money. How come we still can't get paid? That's part of why LeBron James was trying to flex on Michael Jordan in that, that alleged conference meeting about what the owners were going to do for the cause, quote unquote, because you guys are billionaires. You should be able to pitch in and help us out. All that bullshit. If you want to correct what's going on in the so-called black community, it starts in the household. It's just that everybody's scared to speak the truth. That being that the so-called black woman, the liberal black woman, has to be taken out of power, and the so-called black man has to regain the power that he deserves to have as long as he has his mind on straight and is the leader of the household and understands how to be a provider, make money, and instruct his children and his wife. So all of these issues are not being touched on. The solutions are just, well, you know what? Let's take money from the rich people. That's just Marxism. That's a loser's philosophy. That's a philosophy for losers. I've been sitting back my whole life making excuses, and now you know what? I deserve to have your money. No, I don't think so.
So much on their shoulders. These are such...
No, it's not. There's not anything on these motherfuckers' shoulders. If you want to talk about people who have true pressure on their shoulders, let's talk about some of these single mothers or single fathers who have 2 or 3 children and have to work 2, maybe even 3 jobs just to make ends meet. That's real pressure. Pressure is not LeBron James making $35 million a year in basketball and $50 million more off the court, who decides that he wants to push people to come against Donald Trump. Oh, he has so much pressure. Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody asks him real questions about what his end game and what his plan is, because he has none. And the mainstream liberal media is on his side. So miss me with, a lot of the fake virtue signaling and casting of LeBron, the lionizing of some of these professional athletes who are dimwits. A lot of these guys are dimwits.
Strange times. We're in the middle of a pandemic and everything with the election. It's a lot, but I hear you. It's a business at the end of the day.
Can I say this to you? Can I ask a fair question?
Yeah.
You actually think it's more on their shoulders than it is on the common Joe out here?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. There are people out here starving. Ribs is touching with a lot of people. Molly is she's nothing but a fucking groupie.
That if they don't go to work, they can't pay their bills?
I think it's a lot on everybody.
I know that. That's not what I asked.
Everybody.
In other words, she can't respond because she's living in her own world, her own bubble. where she gets the opportunity to be a moderator on a sports talk show. So therefore, she sees everything through the prism of the lionizing of athletes. Stephen A. has to be very careful because he asked her a real question. It's always dangerous to ask a liberal female a question based in reality, because they might accuse you of being misogynistic, chauvinistic, or trying to quote-unquote attack them in some way. And we know that even though Stephen A. Smith is not just the star of this show, he's the star of ESPN. They will suspend him for coming against the quote-unquote feminine principle.
Yeah. I know that. It's a lot on everybody. Nobody's absolved. I'm asking you, do you think it's more on their shoulders?
Of course not, where people don't know how they're going to put food in their mouth? Yes, of course. But I think millionaires also have problems as well.
Yeah, people experience their lives, you know, relative to their surroundings. So to Danny Green or an NBA player, of course they would not trade places with most people who are actually working harder and for much less reward. But it's still like, wait a minute, this is what we're used to, and now we're asked to do all this extra stuff.
What extra stuff? Okay, you guys don't get a 3-month vacation. You only get a 2-month vacation. These are the same dudes who used to play basketball 12 hours a day as kids. You're getting paid 7-8 figures. Get over it. I don't want to hear none of the bullshit. Report your ass to camp in early December or late November, whenever it is. You know, maybe after Thanksgiving, they'll have to report to camp if the season starts on December 22nd, and go out there and play. You're getting paid tens of millions of dollars a year. Get over it. And miss me with the there's so much on their shoulders bullshit. Nobody asked them dudes to lead. No one cares if Jaylen Brown is at a protest or not. He don't really have anything to say anyway.
And then go back back at it again.
And I'm saying they have a point, but so does everybody else. Everybody's being asked to do extra.
No,
everybody.
And to your point, as far as the average Joe, they also have a lot of average Joes pulling on them as well.
Yes.
Yes, a lot of people to support.
Absolutely. And that's all the more reason why they should get their black asses to camp on time and play the whole season, Molly Karam. So you're making his point for him.
And other millionaires who came from wealth.
A lot of us would know about that.
All right.
And guess what? We still got to deal with it.
Yeah.
And still got to work with no excuses. And you have to show up to work and not expect to still get paid even if you don't show up to work. That's not how the real world works. But then again, she's a liberal woman. They believe that money grows on trees. All they have to do is show up to work with a low-cut blouse on like her or Joy Taylor, and they deserve to get paid. Long as half their breasts are out.
Good talk, guys. I like it. The rich get...
But anyway, that's basically it on that. We'll see if the NBA does indeed decide to start their season in late December. I believe that they will. At least if they know what's best for them. So peace.